All right. Welcome, everyone, to the November 20th Two Old Pucks hockey chat with Scott and Chris. Chris, of course, being the cooler of the two.
And the older. Let's not forget that.
Oh, come on. And wiser. Well, that means I'm the wiser one.
Well, there is some wisdom that comes from failure. So yeah, good, good. I can do this all night, buddy. Can do this
Listen, I know
all
you're
night.
salty from your loss the other night to the Islanders, so it's all right. I'll let you have it.
Yeah,
It's the only
no,
thing you got. Your saltiness is the only thing you have these days.
that's true. It was definitely a character win by the Islanders. So I mean, let's just jump right into that. So I'll give my perspective over the game, and then let you roll right in with really the impressive streak that they've been on. So yeah, I mean, looking at that game last night, Pittsburgh was up 2-0. The Islanders came back, right? Pittsburgh then was up 4-2 with 5 minutes left in the game. It's a testament to that team that they were resilient. I will throw out excuses that really don't excuse the loss, but Pittsburgh's playing without some of its best players. Pittsburgh made some really dumb plays, icing the puck 3 times, and of course, that rule where you can't call a timeout after an icing,
Right.
which is a good thing. That should deter teams from trying to ice the puck to waste time. But they, credit to them, they pulled the goalie, scored the goal, tied it up, sent it to overtime, and then
Yeah.
it capitalized on some poor play by Pittsburgh. So I mean, just good for them. It's good to see that message really permeates throughout the lineup that Trotz is putting, and he's got a good system in place. And I mean, they're on a tear, and everybody in the league should be paying attention to what's going on in Long Island.
Yeah, it's going to sound a little funny, but for someone like myself as a lifelong Islander fan, you're always excited to see your team do well, but to have a new stadium around the corner, to have a general manager that knows what they're doing, to have owners that want to win a cup and are doing everything within their power and spending the money and showing 110% support out there in the public, shaking hands, kissing babies, riding the train with the fans into the games when there are still some of them being played at Brooklyn. To have a coach like Barry Trotz, to have the support staff like Mitch Korn. I mean, and to have everybody that we have, I mean, I'm thankful. I'm thankful every day, and it's almost like maybe the Islander fans aren't used to this. It sounds a little crazy, and I don't think any team would be used to this because, in just reading in the online forums and what people have to say, when you see when you're watching an Islander game as an Islander fan, and some people had said this the other night, is usually, they kind of caught themselves about to turn the TV off. They're down 2-0. Oh, all right, here we go. Turn it off. That they come back and tie it 2-2. Penguins go up again 4-2. All right, turn the TV off. All right, that's it. Yeah, but fans are learning. No. You got to stay tuned for this.
Well,
I watched the game all the way through, and it was insane. It was insane. Insane from the standpoint that the Islanders rallied to come back. I wouldn't say it was their best game by any stretch. I think both teams were off. Obviously, the Penguins are littered with injuries, and the Islanders were a little sloppy. But I'm sorry. What were you going to say, Scotty?
no, it's fine. I was just going to jump in and to your point about not turning the TV off, not leaving. I mean, just this past Saturday, they scored 3 goals. They were down 3 goals and came back. And so I hearken back to Pittsburgh, and honestly, it's one of those things. And so I caution Islander fans, but really, it's, if I could speak to the Islanders directly, is don't get comfortable with the idea that you can come back from every deficit. Now, what I will say is fans should be happy to know that they have a team that is obviously playing and is comfortable enough to come back from every deficit. But what you don't want to see happen is where a team is lulled into believing that that can happen every time, and then they don't mind giving up a couple goals here or there, because
Right.
that can permeate into the locker room. But no, I mean it really is. To your point, it's a great thing for fans to have a team that has the ability to come back, score goals when it needs to tie the game or to win. Erasing 3 goal deficits, erasing 2 goal deficits, 2 goal deficits twice last night, is pretty incredible. So, yeah, no, I mean, that's just right now, it's just a well-oiled machine, and fans should absolutely take advantage of what they got in front of them. I mean, what's their point streak up to now?
15. Well, 14. It's 14-0 and
15. I think it's
they were at
15
15.
points.
I think they tied it now. Yeah, so it's
Yep,
15,
15
right?
games. Points in
So,
15 games.
you know, I'm not. I hear what you're saying with the fans should be happy, but I think the more important point is understanding why it's happening, right? And I think the hockey fans, we need to understand it's. Some people would say, okay, is it a lucky streak? Are they just getting lucky here? Is the puck just bouncing their way? And then they're going to just, I think the fear for the normal hockey fan, well, not a fear, but sort of the thought is, okay, well, if they're on a high, then they're going to crash and they're going to lose like 30 games or something. Well, I think it's a bit more than that. I'm not as concerned with the streak, right? I don't think it's about the point streak. I think the point streak is a very nice byproduct of what Trotz is pushing in practice and what the coaches, what they're preaching off ice. And I think what they're saying is if we focus on this, our percentage or our percentage of play is going to go up. Like we're going to be a high percentage team in this category, if we just stick to this plan here, stick to this plan there, and stick to this plan over there. And I think they've bought in to adhering to the curriculum, and in doing so, the percentages have been in their favor in those categories that they're focusing on. Right, defense, scoring across all lines, right, and in having that solid defense, it's proven that you can take guys like Robin Leonard or a Varlamov and make them look like superstars. Okay,
Yep.
and I think that that's where it's at is understanding that it's a complete team effort from the coaching staff to the players buying into what's being pushed on them and just adhering to it and being consistent with the effort every night. Now, if honestly, the streak is it's just media candy, right? It's just media candy, and it's a nice thing to say that okay, there's a point streak, but this is a sign of a bigger thing. I think forget the streak. It's almost like I wish they didn't have the streak. The streak's nice, but I think if they didn't have the streak, they still would have won like 13 of the last 15. And I think, go ahead.
Sure. Well, what I would say to you though is that you're right. Calling it a streak it is media candy, and I understand what you're saying. The other thing that I think you should really consider though is that stringing this number of games together, picking up points this early in the season means that. And getting some distance or trying to put some separation, at least in the division, if not the conference, is that now come next spring when there are teams who are win every night or there's no postseason, this is the time when they're picking up those points. And whether they're picking them up in ties, overtime losses, or wins, it doesn't matter. They're picking them up. And these are points that they're not going to have to fight for.
Right.
If they have a rash of injuries or just the magic stops, they're not going to have to fight for them in the spring.
Right.
And that's big.
Yeah, and that was kind of my end point there was that I don't believe the Magic from the standpoint of the media candy will stop, because at some point, of course, they're going to lose. And they're going to be like, oh, the streak is broken. And I think everyone in the locker room is not going to know the difference, whether the streak was there or not, because Trotz and team are going to keep them focused on how they need to keep executing the plan, right? And I think what's happened, the real reason why the streak exists is because, once again, it's a high percentage of play that has just happened to result in a string of wins. But I think going forward, you're going to see that they're going to win when they come down to reality. I think their reality is going to be that they win 4, lose 1, win 3, lose 2, win 5, then lose 2, then win 4, lose 1. So it's going to be that they're going to maintain that very high percentage of play, and you're going to see, like a 3 or 4 wins and then a loss, or 2. So it's going to be like, a very, very good high percentage of winning percentage.
Sure.
I think this is nice, obviously, but I don't think they're going to come. I think people who have the thought that there's going to be, everything has to be balanced. If they're streaking now, they have to crash somewhere else. I don't think that's going to happen here. I don't think Trotz and team are going to let that happen. I think you're going to see that their reality is that they're going to continue to be playing very solid hockey for the remainder of the season, and that you're just going to happen to see losses a little bit more frequently, but not to the point where they still don't maintain a very high winning percentage.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're absolutely right. Winning begets winning. They get the culture there, and it's good. So, yeah, I mean, so let's talk about another team that's really been pulling itself away, establishing itself, and that's the Washington Capitals.
Right.
Again, I would say probably the 2 best teams in the league right now are probably New York and Washington.
Right.
New York had its I want to say 13 game point streak and ended this past Saturday. But again, that's 13 games with a point. These guys, these teams that are putting these runs together now are banking points early that they're not going to have to pick up in the spring. And I can't tell you how frustrating it is to watch teams struggle to get that 90 point or that 95 point total that's pretty much required to get in the playoffs. I mean, you get 90, 95. If you can't get there, if mathematically it's not possible, then the teams are just playing spoiler at that point. But it's incredibly frustrating to watch teams come to life in the last 20 games of the season, and you wonder, where were you earlier? Like, where has this team been? Because then you look back and you're frustrated at this time of the year when they dropped points, they left them on the ice, points they should have picked up against bad teams. So when you lose to a team like Ottawa, or you end up tying a team or losing in overtime to a team like Ottawa, and you're like, man, that's 2 points absolutely should have had. So, or when you're up 4-2 with 5 minutes left in the game, you get pretty frustrated when you're leaving points out on the ice. So Washington and New York, I mean, just two really great teams that are putting those games together. And hockey fans should really look for those streaks, because just as much as a 10-game winning streak or a 5-game winning streak is important, a 5 to 10 game losing streak is really bad. And you start having those points in time, where you have weeks that go by when you're not winning. Guys, players still have confidence. The coaches are making some really, bad moves. GMs are looking to, maybe burn the house down, trying to figure out something to start them back up. So, I think we're going to see now, and in the upcoming years, where teams are really going to start to separate themselves earlier in the season with streaks. And I call it a streak, just strings. We'll say strings of wins or strings of points being picked up over the course of several games. So now with that, one of the things that, so where I work, I'm not allowed to take my phone into the building. So I come out from work today, I turn on my phone, I'm looking online, and one of the first things that hits my phone, huge news. Mike Babcock.
Yep.
Mike Babcock was fired today from Toronto.
Yep.
That's incredible. Back in 2015, the Maple Leafs. Well, back in 2015, it was like the crowd in a Jerry Springer episode where they're glued. What's going to happen? Who's the father? Is somebody going to come out and cause a fight? Toronto landed Mike Babcock in 2015, paid him bags of money, and nothing. He's not done anything, and it's Toronto. It's Canada. It's Canadian hockey. Fans don't put up with losing, especially consistently, for long, and they just dumped him.
We covered this the other day, and I'm just looking at all the articles that exist right now, and I'll put it up on the screen, just doing a simple search as far as running his name. I mean, it's just, it's crazy. It's a little bit of a deeper discussion. I don't know why, if we want to take the time now to really push it, but it gets back to how involved the owner should be. And, I think it shows when you have a situation like this where the mindset of the owners are, right? And if an owner is really looking at this as a business, it's tough. It's so easy for the fan to kind of maybe lose sight of the fact that hockey's a business, right? This is there are guys on the ice, but in theory, it's almost like they should be wearing suits and ties also. It's all a business, and it all comes down to the bottom line. And the best business decisions are made devoid of any emotion. So if you strip all the emotion away from a business decision, right, was firing Babcock the best thing for the team? Now, from an owner standpoint, right, there are those owners who look at these decisions and look at the health of their business as time equals money. How much time and how much money are you willing to lose before, you really are taking into consideration the health of your fan base and ultimately your business and what you're pulling in and so on? Is this hurting your product? And from the standpoint, especially in an area like Toronto, I think those owners have to be a bit more critical. I think Babcock has to expect them to be a little bit more critical. And this is not a knock on Babcock. He's a great coach. But for whatever the reasons were, that this wasn't able to be turned around by him, and looking at what the owners of that business were facing, I think from a business decision, purely, it was the right move. They have to find a way to move forward, and if they can't find, and what's this guy's name, Keefe?
Yep.
That took over. If Keefe can't do it, then they have to let him go also and move, and then find someone else. But from a pure business decision, this was the right move. And it's unfortunate because in the sports world and hockey and those, you have those passionate fan base. You'll get people who say, "Oh, but he's a nice guy. He was fired up. He yelled at the guy." No. Business decision. Strip away nice guy, bad guy. From a business decision, results, money.
Yep.
Was this the right move? And that's where I stand with that. And once again, not a knock on him. Separate on the other end of the spectrum from the business decision, as looking at this as a hockey fan, it's unfortunate. I like Babcock. I think he's an asset to the sport. I know that he's going to find a home elsewhere. I hope he finds a home elsewhere. I'm sure he will, and I wish him nothing but the best.
So I mean, there's some interesting things here. I think the fact that Lou left. I mean, I think that I think he had to see the writing on the wall there. I think that he could look back and kind of see that when Kyle Dubas came in, head coaches are hired to be fired. I've
Yeah.
heard many a head coach say that they are hired to be fired. But we have to remember that Mike was Lou Lamoriello's guy, not Kyle Dubas. Kyle Dubas, on the other hand, did hire Keefe, right? So Keefe was hired. He coached in Ontario, and then he hired him to coach in Toronto for the Marlies. He got them into at least the second round of the playoffs a couple times, and won the Calder Cup championship. So he's got pedigree there. He's a winner. And so, if Dubas and Babcock weren't getting along, it only makes sense that you have that. It's also, so the Leafs are in a bad spot. They can't bring in consistent backup goaltending because they are right up against the cap, up against it. I mean, they just went out and just maxed out the credit card.
Right.
And the way that the players have been performing, you can't make trades to free up cap space. Nobody's going to want to take those huge contracts on, and a lot of teams, quite honestly, just can't. So you can't fix it through trades. So one of the easiest things to do is to fire a head coach. And it can be said that Babcock's message could have been getting stale. I mean, the team gave up the first goal in almost every game that they've played, which speaks to their mental preparation. There's 6 games straight that they've lost, or 6-game winless streak, 5 straight losses. They just played horribly. The players played like they wanted the coach to get fired. Now, you say, okay, well, what's Babs going to do now? Well, I think that he's not going to do anything for the rest of the season. He may be approached by a network to maybe be an analyst. Although the way the guy talks, he kind of mumbles a little bit. So, I don't know if he's going to find a spot, at least on a regular basis, on a network. But I mean, the guy had an 8-year, $50 million contract. I mean, that's just crazy. But again, he's being paid $6.25 million to not coach.
Exactly.
I would take that. I would absolutely take that. Now, one thing I will say for Babs is, he only had Matthews, Tavares, and Mitch Marner. Mitch Marner's still not back, but he only had the 3 of them in his lineup for 2 or 3 games. I mean, it may have been more, but he just didn't have that lineup. And so, a team like Edmonton, for instance, when they've got all their big names, their big guns in the game, they can compensate, right? They can overcome a lot of those deficiencies. Babcock, the Maple Leafs are obviously built around just a couple players. They're not a system team. They're not blue collar. And, Babs, clearly looks like he lost the locker room because he wasn't able to get the guys to step up to play the system, to play the roles that he wanted. But, I just got to say, I think that when Lou left, I think the writing was on the wall.
You mentioned not having those 3 players on the ice due to injuries, right? So you got Matthews, Tavares, Marner, right? Is there a point to be said that, that's those are offensive players, and you don't necessarily need an offensive player to increase your defensive play?
So what I will tell you is that
you don't need an offensive player to buy into a defensive system. I mean, you can put any player in there. Either way, you need to build up your defensive end.
No. So that's not the way the league is built anymore. The league is built on puck possession. So the idea is the puck gets dumped into the zone. The defensemen go back and retrieve it, and they push the puck out. And once the puck is out of the defensive zone, it's all about puck possession. It's putting it down low behind the goalie, sending the wings in to grind. It's all about puck possession. And puck possession will drive defense because you'll see. So perfect example. You take a game And so the Islanders game last night is a perfect example. The Islanders out hit the Penguins almost 2-1. Who is throwing checks? The team with the puck or without the puck?
Here's my no. I understand what you're saying, and everything you're saying is correct.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not challenging what you're saying, but maybe what I'm trying to do is dilute that initial comment about not having Matthews, Tavares, and Marner, because and what I'm maybe leaning toward, and immediately what comes to my head is how the Islanders don't have three mega names like that. I guess what would be considered mega media darling names like that, right? Yes, some people would argue that Barzal would be, one of those guys, but there we have such an even spread of talent that you see that defensive play from everybody.
Yep,
And that's
absolutely. But the team is built.
That's what I'm getting at.
The system is put in place that way. There are teams where they front load their offense, expect to score a lot of goals. They pay a lot of money for goaltending because they don't put that same amount of money into their back end. And so they really try and drive the game with their offense. It's obviously not a good system to put in place. And you have to spread the money around because we've seen that's what's successful.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I really don't feel bad for Babcock. The NHL is notorious for rehiring coaches that get fired. He's definitely going to end up somewhere else, but he still has a whole lot of money coming from Toronto. And I wouldn't mind getting paid $6.25 million to stay home. I wouldn't mind getting paid, $600,000 to stay home. I mean, I think he'll be all right. But big story, definitely early in the season. I just thought that was a really big thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So
what else you got?
Yeah, so we kind of talked about some things like we're talking about current news and let's kind of maybe discuss some other things that aren't really news, but they are newsworthy. We had mentioned off the air that talking about rule changes.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I think is going to be an interesting approach is the offside challenge, the offside rule. And so right now, if a team goes offside with the puck, scores a goal, the coaches can challenge it to look for it if it's offsides. One of the things that just drives coaches crazy, drives fans crazy, is whether or not a player's skate is on the ice or off the ice when it's crossing the blue line, and it's crazy. So they've got their GM meeting, and one of the things that they're going to be addressing is this offside rule. And really, when is it okay to challenge? When is it okay to review the goal? So they're looking at, hey, if a team enters the zone offsides, right? And by offsides, I mean by an inch or a skate in the air. But they're in the zone for 30 to 45 seconds. Does it really matter that they came in offsides? They've been able to maintain puck possession. The defending team is able to come into the zone and square up. Does it matter? And I think that's another important aspect for them to really look at, right? Like, if the puck is in the zone for a minute and they end up scoring a goal, does that offside a minute ago really have that much of an effect on the fact that the goal was scored?
So what do you think is being proposed? That if a team comes in to the offensive zone and they're offsides, but the play continues, that if a coach is going to challenge it, they have to challenge it like when that happens, not necessarily what happens as a result of play a minute later.
So I think that they're going to take a look at getting rid of the skate in the air. I think, or whether it's in the air or on the ice, I think that they're going to look at getting rid of that part of the rule, meaning that the skate has to be on the ice in the neutral zone. So in other words, if the player has his skate, so let's imagine a blue line. A player has one skate over the blue line before the puck, but the other skate is still in the neutral zone side, right? Or it's on the blue line. Right now, the rule states that if that player's foot or that player's skate that is not in the zone is up off the ice, it's offsides. If his skate is on the ice, then it's good. He's clear. So I think they're going to look to get rid of the skate in the air, skate on the ice rule, or a portion of the rule. The other thing I think they're going to look at is if more than, say, 15 seconds, 20 seconds goes by between the play being offside and the goal being scored, I think that they're going to make that non-reviewable. So I think that those are two things that are going to look at. Clearly, you want to get the egregious offsides. You want to make those calls, but it really takes away from the game when you're talking about that inch or that half inch, or the fact that there's air. I mean, how many times do you see these replays where the cameras are zooming in to see if they can see blue between the skate blade and the ice, right? Like it's getting to be ridiculous. So I think it'll be good for them to review. Now, they may come out and not change anything, but I think it's definitely good that they're going to at least talk about it. That they're talking about a GM meeting.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's just a tough one. There's no easy answer there. I think the answer though might have to lie in the time of the challenge rather than I'm not as maybe on board with the foot on the ice or the foot in the air thing. I like the fact that if the foot is in the air, then it's offsides. Right? Now, here's the thing, though, because you have players of different shape, sizes, and so on, where that second foot might be is different for everybody. So that's why I think it's important that the foot be down and not up in the air.
True. One thing I will say about hockey in general is that it's a sport of flow.
Right.
And so,
it's true.
I think if the intention is made, the player is making an attempt not to go offsides, the skate is in the air. I kind of agree that's. I'd like to see that taken out. But at the end of the day, I just want there are people that complain about video review and how it detracts from the sport. You want the on ice calls to be there. You want to give the officials making real-time calls.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with that, but I think that there can be some things that are tweaked to give the officials the discretion to call the game based on how the game is flowing.
I agree with you.
Go that way.
I agree with you. I think I agree with you a little bit differently in the fact that, yes, I agree that the flow and the continuity of the game needs to be preserved, but I think the accuracy is the most important thing, and I think keeping the rule as far as where the foot is, the accuracy of that is what's important to me, because this is going to be a difference as far as how someone enters the zone from Zdeno Chara to Johnny Gaudreau, right? You got a guy that's like 4 feet tall, a guy that's like 7 feet tall, right? So there's two different ways of entering a zone for those two people, right? But I think the continuity can be preserved on the time when you challenge that, and maybe cutting down to the amount of times that you can challenge that, so there's not as many interruptions. Either way, you do have to interrupt and review for one reason or another, whether it's for the foot in the air or on the ice. I'd rather that be accurate and the time interruption be what's looked at as to whether that's interrupting the flow of the game or not.
Sure. And to your point, when you talk about the, interrupting the flow and less challenges. So, they added a penalty for failed coaches challenge.
Oh, yep.
And there's been a 32% decrease in the number of challenges this season.
Yep.
So, that's a good thing.
I agree.
And one of the other things that they discussed was the injury. We talked about this before too, the fact that, when do you stop the play for an injured player?
Mm-hmm.
The rule as written right now does give officials the discretion to make the call. So I think really what's going to happen there is that the officials are going to give clarification on whether or not they can, or whether or not they have the power, or when they should make the stop. And my opinion there, if you're going to modify the rule, is you modify it and say that if a player took a dive or a player really isn't injured, then that team is penalized for stopping the game. So,
right.
So another interesting, I guess if you want to call it rule, that we want to look at is licking. So is it cool to lick another player? This just seems to me, this is insane. I mean,
Yeah, it is.
why are we even talking about this?
Because of Brad Marchand.
It does. It all goes back to starting with Brad Marchand.
I mean, because he's an idiot. I mean, he takes it too far. I mean, he's always been the agitator, right? The antagonist, and he took it too far. And I mean, there were guys complaining about him left and right. I mean, he was licking everybody. Everyone who got annoyed by him licking, he would just lick them more. I mean, it was just ridiculous.
And you know, so we're talking about, you know, Brad Marchand, who last year got into it with Tampa Bay Lightning's Ryan Callahan, and Marchand, when he was interviewed, said, "Hey, the guy just punched me in the face a bunch of times. He was getting close, and so I licked him." Marchand was known for doing it before, so the league came out and said that, "Hey, enough licking. It's done. It's over." But Marchand didn't get any punishment, right? Yeah. And people just kind of looks, oh, it's just Brad Marchand being Brad Marchand. Well, that brings us up to current situation, which is Garnet Hathaway, who plays for the Capitals. He was suspended for 3 games for spitting on Anaheim defenseman Eric Goodbranson Monday night.
Yeah.
And, you know, you kind of harken back and like, Marchand didn't get anything.
Yeah.
Marchand got nothing. And yet now he's getting 3 games.
Well, I think you listen, there's no way I'm going to defend spitting. I mean, there's just no way. I'm not going to defend licking or spitting.
Sure.
I mean, I think they're both moronic. But I think the person who made the decision as to whether or not Marchand did not get a penalty or someone did for spitting lies between what the intent was there, right? What's the, like, you have someone who's in your face and they're close enough and they're intimidating you enough that you can actually reach them with your tongue. Yeah, I could see. Okay, maybe, you know, let me see if I can piss this guy off and let me lick him. All right, I mean, if he's close enough to lick, I mean, then okay, you know what? Maybe I might piss that guy off the same way. Probably not, but I could see how the thought might go through someone's head. Like, let me piss this guy off from the point or from the goal being only to piss this guy off, right? Traditionally, for maybe 100 years or more, spitting at or on someone has always been viewed as like the ultimate sign of disgust and insult. And there is absolutely nothing, there's no other way to perceive it other than the ultimate lack of respect for someone else. And I think that in a sport, then as a representative of the sport and as a, you know, a player for a team in the league, in a professional league, that is just not how you want to represent yourself or represent your organization.
I agree. I think it's got no place in the game.
Both are bad.
Yeah. I mean, I think that kind of behavior has no place in the game. Yeah. It baffles me that we even have to discuss this. This is grown men. In Hathaway's case, you know, he felt like he got sucker punched. His explanation literally was, I had spit in my mouth. I got punched. Spit came out of my mouth. Like that, and it went on to Goodbranson. Like that was his explanation. That's a play-by-play. It's a horrible play-by-play, but it's a play-by-play. And you know, the fact that we were literally talking about this to me is just incredible. You know, the NHL oftentimes gets poked fun at because there isn't a lot of personality. The old guard, you know, the old guys will chastise somebody like PK Subban for, you know, just having a personality on the ice and just really being flamboyant and just, you know, just having that personality. You know, when you interview hockey players, it's almost like a canned interview. You listen to them post game, it's, oh yeah, we were real happy to do that. You know, like the responses. So there isn't a lot of drama in hockey. Right. So something like this, I mean, in football, I'm sure there's guys that get spit on all the time, right? Like there's guys that get kicked and punched when they're on the ground after a tackle. Right. I mean, you know, there's all that stuff. but the NHL certainly is not known for activity like this, except for a notable few exceptions, like Marchand, who everybody loves to hate unless you're a Boston fan. But yeah, I mean, I just think that this is incredible that we're talking about this spitting, and you know now and so the other thing that really hits home is this guy is let me see here. So on the Washington Post, they're saying that he's forfeiting $24,193 of his salary.
Yeah.
For spit. $24,000. That's crazy. So yeah, that's yeah. I that would keep me if I had to lose $24, I probably wouldn't spit on somebody. So
yeah.
But
yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see if there's something in the rule book that specifically addresses the exchanging of bodily fluid on the ice.
Good thing these guys aren't chewing tobacco on the bench.
Well,
like a baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah. I mean, that's kind of all I got for the night. Big stuff here with Babcock getting fired and the GM meetings. You got some teams on the ice that are really tearing it up. So. It's been a good month so far. I think the season's shaken out pretty well. Looking forward to more stuff.
Absolutely. Today is November 20th. Tomorrow is the 21st. And we're going to go with just a couple predictions, and then we'll sign off. Or we'll attempt to sign off because we have to talk about who the best team in hockey is before we sign off.
We're going to be here all night. So,
all right, so November 21st, tomorrow, which is a Thursday evening, we have Buffalo and Boston.
Still going with Boston on that one. Yep. Really? Taking that long to think about it?
Boston's playing real solid. I don't know. Buffalo's got that ability to maybe do a little sneak attack, but if it's in Buffalo, for the heck of it, I'll take Buffalo. If it's in Boston, I'll take Boston. That's where I'm at with that one. Anaheim, Florida.
Anaheim.
I'll take Florida on that.
All right.
Pittsburgh, and the Islanders.
I think Pittsburgh's going to pull this one out. So I believe Pittsburgh has the most number of points of any team against the Islanders this year, and I think that series is what it. Pittsburgh's won once. The Islanders have won once.
Yeah.
And so so whichever team.
And both in overtimes.
Yeah. So, but I don't think any other team has more than 2 points against the Islanders this year. So
I think here's the way I see it. The Islanders are jinxed by Barclays. Every time even last year I remember they had a good run. They went to Barclays and then they lost. And since we've had some home games at the Coliseum, at the old barn, things go well. The crowd is obviously much more supportive at the barn than at Barclays. But, we had a good run, and then we go to get our first game at Barclays, play the Penguins, boom. Get that overtime loss. So I hate Barclays. And I know hate's a strong word, and I hate it from the standpoint of what it is for hockey. And the poor sidelines, and the off center scoreboard, and the fact that you had a car blocking the view of sitting in the corner. It's just and all the problems they've had with the ice, getting the ice right there. But if this was at the barn, I would easily say Islanders. But because it's at Barclays, I could see this being just another overtime burner. So going either way, and that's what Barclays does to me. Is it makes me second guess some things, but I can't stand Barclays. But we'll go with either way. We'll go with Islanders in an overtime win against the Penguins at Barclays.
All right.
Hey, Philly and Carolina.
Carolina.
Detroit, Columbus.
Yep. Gonna go with Columbus. Yep.
Calgary, St. Louis. St. Louis.
St. Louis. Yep.
Yeah. Nashville, Vancouver.
Nashville. They're going to be playing at home, so I'm going to go with Nashville. Yep.
I'll go Nashville. Colorado, Minnesota.
Colorado.
Yes. Tampa Bay, Chicago.
That'll be an interesting one.
Yeah.
Chicago has a way of upping its game, and Tampa, you just never know what you're going to get from night to night.
Yep.
But I'm going to go with Tampa. I think goaltending wins out there. I think Tampa.
I'll go with Chicago. I'll go with Robin Lehner.
Fair enough. All right.
I'll go with Lehner. I don't know if he's playing, but just being our
It'll
boy.
be Crawford. Crawford will be in that game. So. Yeah.
Winnipeg, Dallas.
Dallas.
Yep. Toronto, Arizona. Arizona.
See, this is Toronto's first game with a new head coach. Teams typically play with adrenaline. They play with desperation. Teams get a wake-up call like that hot cup of coffee thrown right in their face. I'm going to go with Toronto. I think Toronto's going to win this one.
Arizona.
All right.
I don't see it. I know what you're saying. It's called death ground. When you know you're about to die, you fight your hardest. And I get it. I don't think Toronto knows how to play as a team yet. I just don't think they know how. You could have 5 guys skating around, skating hard, but I don't know if they're going to know what to do once they have the freaking puck in there, in possession. So
fair enough. I think they may get a steal from a goaltender, and that one will be a low scoring game. But I'm going Toronto. So
San Jose and Vegas.
Vegas, and I don't know if you've seen the video that Vegas put out with Fleury. Holy cow!
Yeah,
that was
impressive stuff, man.
Yeah,
insane.
Yeah,
I'll go with Vegas, Edmonton, and the Kings.
Edmonton. Yep.
Yeah, and I think that wraps it. And then just to drive home the last point about the best team in hockey with the current NHL power ratings that came out within the last 24 hours. Putting the New York Islanders up in the number 1 position, with the Capitals in the number 2 position. So, who's the best team in hockey?
So the standings have the Washington Capitals as the number 1 team in the NHL.
And that's a result of what?
That's a result of points acquired through wins and or overtime losses.
So you understand the power ratings are a reflection of what's happening now, right?
I understand that when you say who is the best team in the NHL, the Washington Capitals have acquired the most points. You're not going to get me to say it.
It's a shame you don't read the news like everyone else. It's a shame you don't actually watch what's going on here.
It's true. It's true.
The team playing the best hockey right now is the New York Islanders.
I would say
the Capitals have earned their points, but that doesn't mean that they can, they have those points and be playing bad.
The first segment was all you're going to get out of me on, and I pretty much heaped a lot of accolades on that Islanders team. So
yes, I did notice that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, hey, I'm a fan of the game. I'm
right there with you, my man.
I recognize good play. So
I'm right there with you. All right. I think that's a wrap.
Yeah, let's wrap this up. It's been good
stuff. For all 3 people watching around the world, thank you. And I think our schedule is what? We're going to try to stick to like a Wednesday, Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, I think that works out pretty good. Let's do that. And, at least we'll have a plan to deviate from.
Yeah, you got it. All right, people. Have a great night. Thank you very much.
Take care. Thanks.